On March 22nd, 2017, Chilean archaeologist Maria Gonzalez stood in front of statue number 417 and cried not from joy, but from horror. Her hands were shaking so badly that she couldn't hold the tablet with the test results. The three expedition members looked at the screen in silence. Then senior researcher George I. Ramirez uttered only one word: impossible. 8 hours later, the entire group signed a non-disclosure agreement. 2 days later, all research materials disappeared from the University of Santiago database. The official version was that there was a technical glitch, but Maria knew the truth. Someone very influential did not want the world to know what the spectral analysis of this stone showed. The Easter Island statues could not have been created by Polynesians. Physically, they couldn't, because a rock from which statue number 417 was carved was 11,000 years old, and the island, according to all history books, was only inhabited in the 10th century AD. This means that someone carved these figures 9,000 years before the first people appeared on this patch of land in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But this is only the beginning, because inside this statue they discovered a cavity, and in it lay something that should not exist on Earth at all. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui as its locals call it, is the most isolated inhabited island on the planet. The nearest land is 3,700 kilometers away, a piece of volcanic rock in the middle of an endless ocean, area 160 square kilometers. This tiny space contains 887 giant stone statues called moai. Each weighs between 10 and 82 tons and is 2 to 10 meters high. Official science claims they were created by the Rapa Nui people between 1200 and 1600 AD using primitive stone tools, no metal, no wheel, and no writing in the modern sense. Then these same people somehow moved multi-ton sculptures a distance of up to 18 kilometers across rough terrain without animals or mechanisms and installed them on platforms that require the most precise engineering calculations. Sounds unconvincing? You are right, because it is a lie. The island's true history began long before the Polynesians, and it is connected to a civilization that modern archaeology prefers to remain silent about, because acknowledging its existence would destroy all the textbooks, all the dissertations, the entire system that feeds thousands of scientists around the world. I am holding a copy of the document in my hands. Report of the Geological Expedition of 1964. Soviet specialists worked on the island for 3 months. Officially, they were studying volcanic activity, but in the classified section of the report, which was kept in the Special Archive of the Academy of Sciences until 2003, the following is written: traces of rock processing with tools of an unknown type were discovered. The nature of the chips does not correspond to either stone or metal tools from known historical periods. The depth of some quarries indicates the use of technologies incompatible with the level of development of Polynesian cultures. This document has never been published. It was classified immediately upon receipt. The expedition leader, geologist Vladimir Kuznetsov, was suspended from work 2 years later. The official reason is the disclosure of official secrets. Unofficially, he began telling his colleagues what he saw in the Reina Raku quarries. Kuznetsov claimed that the statues were laser-cut. In 1964, no one took it seriously. Laser technology was just beginning to develop. It was impossible to use them for cutting stone even in laboratory conditions, and on an island in the middle of the ocean in the 10th century, when, according to the official version, moai were created. Absurd, but Kuznetsov insisted. He brought rock sample from the quarry. The surface of the stone showed microscopic traces of melting. The structure of the crystal lattice is changed in a way that is only possible when exposed to high point-specific, directed temperatures. The samples were confiscated and Kuznetsov was fired. The topic is closed, but he managed to make copies of his notes and pass them on to his student. He kept them for 40 years, and in 2007, shortly before his death, he published it in a low-circulation scientific journal. No one noticed the publication, except one person. Maria Gonzalez was then a second-year student at the Faculty of Archaeology. Kuznetsov's article turned her understanding of the past upside down. She decided to dedicate her life to unraveling the mystery of Easter Island, defended her dissertation, gained access to classified material, and after 20 years of work, found what she was looking for. Statue number 417. It is not located on the coast, like most Moai. It was discovered only in 2011 during excavations in the central part of the island. The statue lay on its side, completely covered in volcanic ash. The ash layer was dated. The eruption occurred about 8,000 years ago. This means that the statue was created before this, long before people appeared on the island. But the scientific community ignored this discovery. They declared that the dating was wrong, that the statue had been buried by a later eruption, and that the geological data were inaccurate. There were experts ready to confirm any version, just to avoid admitting the obvious. Maria did not give up. She obtained permission to re-examine the remains, assembled an independent team of experts, applied the latest dating methods, and obtained results that could not be refuted. The rock from which the statue is carved was formed 11,000 years ago. Stone processing occurred between 10,000 and 11,000 years ago. The error is minimal. This means that someone built primitive huts and hunted mammoths. No civilizations, no technologies. The Stone Age in the truest sense. Meanwhile, on Easter Island, someone was carving 10-meter-tall statues out of solid volcanic rock. Maria understood that this data would ruin her career, but she couldn't stop because the spectral analysis showed something else. There was a cavity inside the statue. It is impossible to detect visually. Moai look like solid blocks of stone, but modern equipment can see right through them. Ground penetrating. Radar showed an empty space in the center of the torso, approximately 1 meter by 1 meter by 15 meters. A natural crack? No, the shape is too regular. The walls are perfectly smooth. This is a camera that was created specifically for this purpose. Maria requested permission for an autopsy. The Chilean authorities refused. It's too risky to damage the unique artifact. But Maria knew people, found sponsors, and convinced officials that the autopsy would be minimally invasive. Modern equipment allows entry through a small opening. March 22nd, 2017. A team of 7 people, special drill, cameras, microphones, sensors. The entire process is documented. The drill enters a stone, goes 30 centimeters, 40, 50. At a depth of 62 centimeters, the resistance drops sharply. The instrument falls into the void. An endoscope is inserted through the hole. The camera transmits the image to the screen. For the first few seconds, everyone is silent. Then Maria covers her face with her hands and starts crying. The cavity contains a cylindrical object, approximately 80 centimeters long and 20 centimeters in diameter. The surface is completely smooth. The material is unknown. On screen it looks dark gray, almost black, but with a metallic sheen on the surface of the cylinder. But the strangest thing is that the cylinder is not covered with dust, not oxidized, not damaged. It looks like it was placed there yesterday, although the statue was created 11,000 years ago. Maria asked to widen the hole. The artifact needs to be extracted. The team works all day. By evening, we manage to get the cylinder. It is heavy, about 15 kilograms. Cold to the touch, despite the heat. The surface does not heat up even. Under direct sunlight, they are trying to determine the material. It is not stone, not metal, not ceramic. The spectrometer shows a strange composition, a combination of elements that does not occur in nature. One of the scientists, a physicist by training, says a word that everyone was thinking but were afraid to say out loud. Alloy, an artificial alloy created in a laboratory using technologies that did not exist in the 10th century, no, in the Stone Age, nor even today, because the creation of such a material requires conditions that are inaccessible to modern industry, temperatures of several thousand degrees, pressures of hundreds of atmospheres, vacuum or inert environment, precision equipment, and all this was created 11,000 years ago on an island in the Pacific Ocean and sealed inside stone statues. For what? By whom? For what? Maria takes dozens of photographs, takes samples for analysis, records all the symbols on the cylinder's surface, and sends the data to colleagues around the world. The reaction comes the next day, but not from scientists. Early in the morning of March 24th, 2 army jeeps drove up to the expedition's tent camp. People in uniform and civilian clothes come out. They present a warrant for the confiscation of all materials. They refer to the Chilean National Heritage Law. They take away the cylinder, hard drives with recordings, samples, laptops, even personal phones. Maria is under threat of criminal prosecution. They are prohibited from publishing any data discussing the discovery or even mentioning it in private conversations. Maria is trying to find out where the cylinder was sent, who gave the order for its confiscation, and why the military, and not the civil, administration are not answering her. They say only one thing: the case is closed. But Maria managed to make copies. Before the confiscation, she uploaded several files to a cloud server, images of the cylinder, a decoded version of the symbols, and preliminary analysis results. She knew it was dangerous, breach of non-disclosure agreement, but could not allow this information to disappear. A month later, she is fired from the university. The official reason is staff reduction. Unofficial, everyone understands. Maria leaves Chile, moves to Europe, finds work in a private research company, continues to study East Island, remotely collects information, bit by bit, and discovers that similar artifacts have been found before. 1956. Norwegian archaeologist Thor Heyerdahl conducts excavations on Easter Island. Officially, he is looking for proof of his theory that the island was populated from South America, but in his personal diary, which was published only after his death, there is a strange entry. On August 27th, something inexplicable was found at the base of platform number 7, a metal object that looks like a tool. The form is unclear. Chilean authorities insisted on the transfer of the find to Santiago. They didn't talk about her anymore. Heyerdahl was known for his skepticism of supernatural explanations. He believed in the abilities of ancient seafarers, but this entry shows that even he encountered something that did not fit into the framework of ordinary archaeology. What was this object? Where did they put it? Why did N.T. Heyerdahl mention him in the official reports? Maria finds another trace. 1970. One of them, published in a small edition, contains a paragraph. The locals told us a legend about birdmen, but in their version these creatures were not a myth. They flew from the sky long before their Rapanui ancestors taught people how to process stone, left gifts sealed in statues, then flew away, promising to return. The elders claim that some statues still contain these gifts, but they are afraid to open them. Mazes did not attach any importance to this, writing it off as folklore, but now these words sound different, gift sealed in statues. This is exactly what Maria found, and this is exactly what someone wants to hide. She begins to dig deeper, studying archives, contacting old colleagues, and finding scientists who worked on the island in different years. Many refuse to talk. They are afraid, but several people agree to meet. One of them is Pedro Ayton. He is a Rapa Nui. His family lived on the island for 300 years. His grandfather was one of the last keepers of ancient knowledge. Before his death, he told Pedro something that had been passed down from generation to generation. The statues were not created by our ancestors. We just found they stood here long before our canoes arrived. We thought they were spirits and worshipped them, but we didn't make them. Those who created the moai were different. They could fly, move stones with the power of thought, and knew what was hidden underground and above the sky. The old man died in 1988. Pedro was 16 years old at the time. He thought his grandfather was delirious, but he remembered the words. Now he understands that the old man was telling the truth. Fly, move stones with the power of thought. It sounds like science fiction, but what if the ancient Rapa Nui people were describing reality, but lacked the words to explain what they saw? The flying machines were cold birds, heavy lifting technology, anti-gravity device, magic. A man in a spacesuit is God. Easter Island is located in one of the most remote places on the planet. If you were a representative of a highly advanced civilization and wanted to create a secret vault, where would you place it? That's right, where people rarely go, where the climate is stable, where geological activity is predictable, where you can be sure that your cash won't be plundered in a couple of centuries. Easter Island fits these criteria perfectly. Isolated, geologically stable, climate predictable. It was not inhabited until a certain point. The creators of the statues knew this. They chose the place specifically, placed the artifacts, disguised them as primitive idols, knowing that when people came here, they would mistake the statues for religious objects. They would worship them, but would not think to look inside. The plan worked. For over 1,000 years, the Rapa Nui people lived near the moai. They revered them, created new ones, but never tried to destroy the old ones because they considered them sacred. The perfect disguise is to hide advanced technology behind the facade of a primitive cult. But who were these creators? Where did you come from? And most importantly, why did they leave? Their artifacts on the island, Maria returns to the symbols on the cylinder. She still has photographs. She shows them to specialists, linguists, cryptographers, historians. No one can decipher it. It is not a language in the usual sense, but rather a diagram, a chart, something like a technical drawing. One of the experts, a design engineer, says some elements resemble electrical circuits. Another astrophysicist sees them as star maps. The third biologist claims that these are molecular structures. Perhaps everyone is right, because the symbols are multilayered. Depending on the angle of view and level of knowledge, you can see different things. This is not a text to read. Maria approaches several technology companies and suggests using their algorithms to analyze symbols. Most refuse. This is too strange a request. But one small firm in Switzerland agrees. They upload an image to a neural network, run a pattern recognition program, and receive results within 3 days. The program finds repeating elements, identifies basic blocks, builds connections between them, and generates a hypothesis. These are coordinates, geographic coordinates, encrypted in geometric symbols, 15 different points on the Earth's surface. Maria puts them on the map. It creates a strange picture. 3 points in the Pacific Ocean, 2 in the Atlantic, 1 in the Indian Ocean. The rest are on land: Egypt, Bolivia, Mongolia, Antarctica, Greenland, Siberia, India, Australia. At first glance, there is no system, but if you connect the dots with lines, you get a geometric figure, a regular polygon with a center approximately in the equator. What is in these places? Maria starts checking. Egypt. The coordinates point to a location in the desert 100 kilometers from Cairo. It was there that an underground structure was discovered in 1993. It was officially declared a natural cave, but some geologists argued that the walls were too smooth and the entrance too regular in shape. It looks like an artificial structure. The excavations ceased after several months. Access was closed. The location was classified Bolivia. The coordinates lead to Lake Titicaca, underwater at a depth of 200 meters. In the 2000s, underwater research was conducted there and stone structures, smooth blocks, were found, something resembling the ruins of a city. The age could not be determined, but the structures were covered with a thick layer of bottom sediment. This means they have been lying there for thousands of years. Information has leaked out, and legends are told of glowing lights at night, strange sounds coming from underground, and people going there and disappearing. In the 70s, the Soviet military carried out some work there, but what exactly remains classified? To this day, it is only known that magnetic anomalies were recorded in the area. Instruments failed, and compasses showed the wrong direction. Antarctica. Here the coordinates lead to a depth of about 2 kilometers. It was in this area that an American expedition discovered a subglacial lake in 2001. Lake Vostok, isolated from the outside world for millions of years. When they started drilling to reach the water, something strange happened. At a depth of 3,700 m, the drill encountered a solid obstacle. Metal, not ice, not stone. Drilling was stopped and the project was frozen, officially due to environmental concerns, unofficially because they found something they didn't expect. All of these places are connected, arranged in a specific pattern, and the coordinates of all of these places are encrypted on a cylinder found inside a statue on Easter Island. Accident? No, it's a map. A map of the global network created 11,000 years ago or even earlier. Network of what? Storage facilities, bases, shelters. Maria realizes that she is digging too deep and begins to feel that she is being watched. Strange calls, unknown numbers, a car that appears nearby too often to be a coincidence. She decides to take action, contacts journalists, and offers to publish the materials. Several major publications have refused. Too conspiratorial, insufficient evidence, reputational risk. But one small online publication agrees. They publish an article with photographs of the cylinder, decoding of coordinates, and connections between points. The article is read by several thousand people. She is gaining popularity. The server is unavailable. The editor-in-chief of the publication calls Maria. He says he received legal and other threats. Asks not to contact again. Deletes all contacts. Maria realizes that she has stumbled upon something big. Something that someone desperately wants to hide. And this someone has serious resources. It can silence scientists and journalists, entire institutions. Who are these people? The government, the secret services, or someone else? A secret organization guarding ancient knowledge. Sound like a conspiracy theory, but the facts are there. Artifacts are found. Research is stopped. People are fired. Information is classified. For what? What is so dangerous about these findings? Why Can't the world be told the truth? The answer lies in nature itself. This truth, because if we admit that 11,000 years ago there was an advanced civilization, the entire modern picture of human history would collapse. We will have to rewrite textbooks, revise theories, admit that we are not the first, that there were others before us, more developed, more powerful. And what happened to them? Where did they disappear to? Why are there no visible traces of their cities, their technology, their culture? Maybe they haven't disappeared. Perhaps they went underground, or underwater, or even left the planet, and left the artifacts as a message for those who come after them. For us, the message is in the form of stone statues, on an island in the middle of the ocean. Statues, inside which are hidden keys, coordinates of other vaults, other messages. A global game of hide and seek that has lasted 11,000 years, and we are just beginning to understand the rules. Maria sits in her small apartment in Barcelona. On the table in front of her live printouts, photographs, maps, test results, everything that was saved after the confiscation. She knows that it is dangerous to dig further, that the next step could cost not just a career, but also a life, that there are people, and that somewhere out there, underground and underwater, in the most remote corners of the planet, lie the answers to the questions that humanity has been asking for thousands of years. Where did we come from? Are we alone? What was before us? And someone really doesn't want us to know the answers. But time is working against them. Technology is developing. Independent researchers are finding clues. Information leaks out, slowly but surely. Sooner or later the truth will come out. There are too many clues. Too many people know the pieces of the puzzle. Sooner or later, someone will put the whole picture together, and then the world will change forever. On June 17, 2018, Maria received an email from a man who introduced himself as Andrei Volkov, a former employee of the Institute of Geology of the Siberian branch of the Academy of Sciences. He writes that he saw her article before it was deleted, saved a copy, and found out the coordinates. One of the locations is in Yakutia, in the area where he worked 20 years ago. There's what she is looking for, but the road there is dangerous. Not physically. It's dangerous because you find out. Maria answers and asks for details. Volkov sends photographs, old, cracked, taken on a film camera in the late 90s. The photographs show a cliff, a sheer wall of dark stone with symbols carved into it. The same symbols as on the Easter Island cylinder. Maria feels her heart beating faster. This is proof. Connection between points. One writing system in places separated by thousands of kilometers. Volkov writes that the 1997 expedition stumbled upon this rock by accident. They studied permafrost, took soil samples, and discovered an anomaly. The temperature underground was several degrees higher than it should have been. It's a small difference, but in permafrost conditions, it's critical. They started digging. At a depth of 12 meters, they found a structure, a wall, vertical, going even deeper. The surface is treated. Unnatural formation. We continued excavations along the wall. After 15 minutes, we found a corner. The wall turned. So it's a structure, a building or something like that. They called for reinforcements. Archaeologists and geophysicists arrived and set up a full-fledged camp. They worked for 3 months and excavated a 30-meter-long section of the facade, meters above the permafrost level. And on this facade were those very symbols. Volkov was there a month after the completion of the work. All the expedition participants were called in for a separate interview. They explained that the discovery was of strategic importance. The information was classified, and disclosure was punishable by law. The excavation site was filled in, the camp was dismantled, and the coordinates were declared a closed zone. The official reason is radiation. Contamination, although no measurements were taken, at least with them. The wolves don't know what was inside the structure. They weren't allowed past the facade. But he saw. Another group arrived there a week after they left. Military personnel with heavy equipment and drilling rigs. What were they doing there? Dug, extracted, destroyed? Volkov tried to find out and contacted former colleagues. Everyone was silent. Some refused to talk. Some pretended not to remember. One said bluntly, "Forget it. It's none of your business. If you want to live in peace, forget it." Volkov forgot about it for 20 years, raised children, worked, retired, and suddenly saw Maria's article, saw the coordinates. One of the points was exactly there, in the place where they found the underground structure. Coincidence? No, it was too accurate. A hit. This means that the creators of the cylinder knew about this place, marked it, and included it in their map. For what? What's so important about it? Maria asks to meet. Volkov agrees, but not in Russia. Too dangerous. He comes to Barcelona. They meet in a small cafe on the outskirts. Volkov looks older than his 62 years. Gray-haired, tired, his eyes restless. He looks around, checking if he is being followed. He hands Maria a flash drive. It contains all the surviving photographs, precise coordinates, maps of the area, excavation plans, personal notes, and more. Sample. A small piece of stone. She sends a sample for analysis to the same Swiss laboratory where the cylinder was examined. The results come in a week. The composition is identical, the same artificial alloy, the same proportions of elements, the same molecular structure. This means one thing. The structure in Yakutia and the statues on Easter Island were created from the same material and using the same technology. 1. Civilization. The connection has been proven, but Volkov says something else, something that was not included in any reports, personal observations. While they were working on the excavation, several people began to complain of strange sensations, headaches, ringing in the ears. Some people saw dreams, very vivid, recurring ones. Volkov also dreamed about it. He saw long corridors, illuminated from within, although there was no light source. The walls themselves glowed with a soft, bluish radiance. At the end of the corridor there was a massive door with the same symbols as on the facade. Volkov approached, touched the surface, and the door began to open. But at that moment he woke up every time and couldn't see what was behind the door. Other members of the expedition told similar stories, corridors, light, doors. 1. Geologists claimed to have heard sounds, something like voices, but not words, more like a melody or vibration. Management attributed this to fatigue and the psychological pressure of isolation and advised more rest. But the dreams did not stop. They became brighter and more intrusive. By the end of the expedition, half the team was taking sleeping pills. We tried not to see these dreams because they began to frighten us. Too real, too detailed. It seemed that it was not the brain that was generating the images. It seemed as if someone from outside was transmitting them into consciousness. After leaving, the dream stopped. After a couple of weeks, everyone forgot about it and returned to normal life. But Volkov remembered those corridors, that light, why they kept it secret. This is not just archaeology. These are potentially dangerous objects that affect the psyche, the consciousness. What if the impact can be amplified, directed, and used? Any advanced technology is perceived as magic, and technology that can directly influence consciousness is perceived as a godlike power. The creators of these structures possess such power and left it working after 11,000 years. The equipment is still functioning, emitting, and having an effect. For what? Security, warning, or communication, an attempt to pass information on to those who find it. Volkov leaves, asks not to. Contact him again. He did what he could. Further on his path. He is too old for adventures and wants to live out the rest of his life in peace. Maria stays with the flash drive and the sample, studying the photographs. The symbols on the rock are indeed identical to those on the cylinder, but there are some differences in additional elements. It is as if the inscription in Yakutia is more complete or later or, conversely, earlier. She sends the image to the same Swiss specialist and asks him to run it through a neural network along with Easter symbols. The result comes in 3 days. The program allocates new coordinates. 3 dots, all in the northern hemisphere. 1 in Greenland, 1 on the Kola Peninsula, 1 in Canada, Bafina Land Island. This is no longer an accident. It is a system. Each location contains a map fragment that points to further locations, a chain leading somewhere. Where? Maria adds new points to the map. Now there are 18 of them, 15 from the cylinder, plus 3 new ones. Connects with lines. The result is a complex geometric figure, but it has a center, a point, equidistant from all others. The coordinates of the center are the Arctic Ocean, but not the surface, the bottom. Lomonosovo Ridge, underwater mountain. Then, in 2007, Russia sent underwater vehicles there and planted a flag on the bottom. Geopolitical gesture, a claim to territory. But there are oddities in the reports from that expedition. Mentions of unusual geomagnetic anomalies, strange echo signals during sonar scanning, structures on the seabed that do not correspond to natural geology. Further details are classified. Publicly, they talk only about the scientific significance and the prospects for mineral extraction. But something else can be read between the lines. They found something there, something important, something that they don't want to discuss openly. Maria is trying to find the participants of that expedition, contact them, and ask questions. Most are unavailable. Work in closed institutes. Don't answer letters. Don't pick up the phone. But one person agrees to talk. Andrei Segalovich, a legend of Soviet and Russian oceanology. He completed more than 500 dives, descended to the Titanic, explored Lake Baikal, and was on that expedition to the Lomonosov Ridge. He is 85, officially, retired, but still advises young scientists. Maria writes to him without expecting an answer, but he answers. Invites you to Moscow. She's flying. They meet in his apartment. The walls are covered with photographs, underwater landscapes, inhabitants of the deep, models of devices. Segalovich pause. Sits down in a chair, speaks. Slowly, considering every word. Yes, he remembers that expedition. 2007, 2 devices descended on the world. He commanded one. We reached the bottom at 4,200 m. The relief is unusual, not just a ridge, but a stepped structure, as if artificial terraces. But they attributed it to geological processes, erosion, tectonics. Then they notice an anomaly. At one of the stages, the objects, and at that moment the devices and the apparatus began to go crazy. The compass was spinning. The depth gauge showed 0, and communication with the surface was lost. Segalovich immediately gave the command to surface. Both devices began to rise. A minute later, the instruments returned to normal. The connection has been restored. But on the surface, they were met by worried faces. A short-term powerful electromagnetic flash was recorded on the ship, exactly at the moment when the manipulator touched the object. Further, Diving at this point is prohibited, officially due to technical problems, unofficially due to danger. It is unclear what these objects are, how they work, what impact they have. The flag was installed in another place, a few kilometers away, and the coordinates of the anomalous zone were kept secret. Segalovich shows Maria the recordings from the device's video cameras. Fuzzy, great depth, low lighting, but objects are visible. Cylinders are located in a circle, and in the center of the circle there is something else. Flat, round, platform-like. There are symbols on the platform. Maria asks to stop the recording and zoom in. Segalovich finds a clearer frame. The symbols are visible, blurred, but recognizable. The same one from Easter Island, from Yakutia. The same system. It is the center, the main node, the place where all coordinates, all threads, all clues lead. What's there? Maria asks directly. Segalovich is silent for a long time, then says, he doesn't. No, but he suspects. Those cylinders aren't just objects. They're antennas or transmitters or receivers, creating a network that links all the points on the planet where similar structures exist. A global communication system that operates on principles we don't yet understand, using energy whose source is unknown. The creators of this system thought big, planetary, placed nodes all over the world, linked them,